Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Ready for the round 15 trade targets and preview stream. Hopefully you all can hear me okay. Very early start today, 5:30 p.m. This is probably the earliest I've ever done a preview stream, but had to adjust the schedule for a few things, but we made it work. We've made it work. So there's plenty of you already in the chat, which is awesome. 51 viewers. When is he going to start? We're starting now, Shifter Pod. Great to see Mr. Callio, James, Tyler Fratters, Jason Yang, miss you. I'll miss you too, mate. Moz13, Steez is another Moz. We've got two Mozes in the chat, one with 1Z, one with 2. And then we've got Corey as well. Paycheck sounds good. Awesome. Who to trade for Curran straight away from Corey? Paul is your biggest fan. Say hello. Hello, Paul. Biggest fan. Good to see you. Tom Leung, anyone lacking players for round 19? Yeah, we'll talk about round 19, round 15, 16, 17, all of that good stuff. But great to see so many of you in the stream already. Give the stream a like as well if you enjoy it. Preferably like it now, but if you want to reserve judgment, I won't judge you for that either. What a man, Toby. Thank you so much. Jack, hello. Yeah, great to see so many of you already starting nice and early, but lots to cover. Seems like quite a few options have cropped up that look really good, bottomed out guns, etc. So we'll get into all of that good stuff. Very quickly, not good for Flegler. Yeah, shout out to Flegler. I mean, I haven't heard or read the full quote from Wayne Bennett, but I saw Whisperer tweeted about it. Apparently, the nerve issue could be potentially season or career ending. Like, that's pretty serious. So hopefully wishing the best for him. Because, yeah, that started as like a very innocuous thing and it just seems to be prolonged. So hopefully all good for him. But in terms of how my team is going, 1051, which I kind of flagged on I flagged on Instagram that I'm probably expecting red arrows. So went down 896 spots to 5.3k, which is fine. I have made some progress over the last few weeks. So hopefully just looking to look at the buy period as a collective period where hopefully by round 20, it'd be nice to maybe be in the top kind of 3,500 and maybe try to make a late push for like top 1,000. That would still be the goal. We're a fair few points behind that, but look, anything can happen. We're seeing some big scores still, so just got to nail those captaincies and trade-ins and hope, fingers crossed, that it'll work for the best. But yeah, doing well at the moment. Obviously, last week, not the best. Just missed out on some of those big scores like Latrell, Lomax. Captain Drinkwater was probably the biggest one, but traded in Cody, bit of a pod move, and he did pretty well actually for me. G'day from Rosa. James, we've already shouted at you. No offense, James. Mullion DWZ, my thoughts this week. Yeah, we'll definitely talk about those two. They're very, very hot topics. We've got Mark Lawler saying, I have Mitchell. Would you trade him out after this week if he's in Origin? Yeah, probably a question for next week. But Latrell Mitchell, plenty of people are looking at maybe trading him in this week. So I think you're in a luxury position there, Mark, thinking about even getting rid of him. Most of the people out there are wanting to maybe get him in. Paycheck asked Matt Teddy. We'll talk about fullbacks for sure. Joey Manu fan. Love the account name. I'm going to be a fan of his this week, 100%. Armstrong. Who would I trade for Armstrong from Tony Vo? Or should I hold him? You have him in the centres. Yeah. Actually just read a report that Armstrong has requested a release from the Newcastle Knights. Now, I don't know if that's like a end of season or an immediate. I figure if it was an immediate one, it would have been flagged as an immediate release. But yeah, I mean, that potentially does maybe open it up a little bit to selling him because, you know, like if he's going to be requesting a release, it doesn't really show strong motivation to want to stay at the club. And this is only after like 7 days of committing to them. But Fletcher Sharp's come in, played very well. So you could be looking at Armstrong thinking, well, he's not going to be anything for me. He's at a good value, sell him. So yeah, I can see people moving him on. Jack has asked about Galvin. Is he a trade out? So yeah, we'll have a topic around those kind of cash cows who started to peak a little bit in price and maybe now are ready to be moved on for a gun, maybe the fallen gun, or you spend up the money to go to someone else. So we'll definitely be talking about that for this week. Very quickly, just wanted to quickly highlight how to go tips. Not great. I think I only got 3 tips right. I tipped Parramatta, which I looked back in hindsight, I thought, bit surprising, although they did have a man advantage, but Bulldogs just really, really good this season. Very competitive, good defensively, a lot of grit in their team. But yeah, it wasn't a good week for me. TLT summary-wise for this week, I guess a few big names are back. You've got Nico Hines back, Braden Trindle staying in the team at 5'8". I think is really good for the likes of, hopefully, Mulatalo, Kale Iro, that left-hand side. Cam Murray's back by the bench. We obviously know no Galvin. That was reported early in the week, but Preston back at halfback. One thing I failed to mention in my TLT summary, which I want to just double check, but I'm pretty sure is the case, is that Jacob Preston also hasn't been named, and I think NRL Physio They haven't been named because the Dogs are on the bye, so we actually haven't got any confirmation, but sounds as though he's going to be out for a few weeks as well, so people are looking at moving him on. Eshe's back for the Warriors, which is good for maybe anyone looking at the likes of Mulatalo. That right side attack should improve. You've got Joe Chan on the bench. Blaise Alung still named on the wing. No Joey Lussick on the bench for the Eels yet. He was a late inclusion onto the bench last week. And then you've got Connor Watson back for the Roosters. I think that'll be really good for the Roosters attack, because when they were absolutely firing was when Connor Watson was playing a dummy half and not Brandon Smith, who's been dropped. He had this breach notice. So Connor Watson is very expensive himself, but I think he's good for the rest of the Roosters team. No Armstrong, he's been named in the reserves as well, so he's clearly maybe like fit to play, but he hasn't been selected. And Dylan Edwards has been named as well. A couple of other cheaper fullback options. Hopper Whitey from the Manly Sea Eagles was named at fullback, and Fletcher Sharp was also named at fullback. Both of those guys are only available at fullback as well. Seeing a few things here from the chat already. Hi, Man. I have to ask what red and green arrows mean. Thanks, mate, Tony. No problem. Green arrows basically means you've just gone up in your overall rank, and red arrow means you've gone down. I realize, that might sound like a very basic question, but there are probably plenty of head-to-head players out there who don't care about their overall rank. All they care about is their leagues. But yeah, that's effectively what red and green arrows refer to. How much longer will Wishart be an option? I still have Munster. Is he worth holding? I definitely wouldn't be holding on to Munster still. He should still be out for a few weeks, at least until round 20, I think. So he's still going to have 5 weeks of Wishart there. So, with Munster, he's pretty expensive. I wouldn't definitely be holding him. I like the Wishart move as well. We kind of noted him a couple of weeks ago when people were looking at Wishart versus like KO weeks. Wishart has gone really well last few weeks as well. Presto, 2 to 4 weeks. Yeah, that's the thing that's an awkward one. 2 weeks, I'd probably say hold. 4 weeks, I'd probably say, move on at his price. Appy at halfback is strange. Appy has been named at halfback before. What that probably means, I guess, kind of a couple of things. Probably puts in doubt any... it probably was going to be the case that Hooker was going to stay the same for New South Wales. Reece Robson played fine. But Appy Coruscant probably playing a halfback is going to get that extra chance to prove himself at a dummy half. That's one thing. And I think from a Supercoach point of view, his base is just not going to be as high because he's not going to be making as many tackles to the middle. So it's not ideal for him. But I guess he'll be tied to, Lockie Galvin's injury. By the way it reads, Galvin should only be out for a week. He's been playing through this hand injury for the last few weeks. I think they're just giving him a rest. I know there's some other broader things around his contract situation. He wants to get out of the Tigers, whatnot. Apparently his manager's supposedly a fairly toxic one. I don't know anything about that apart from this is what people have said online. So I'm just going to relay the message. But I think, with Galvin, if he's only going to be out for the week, he plays round 16. Look, I know talking about him a little bit early, but I'd be tempted to try to hold on to him just for this week if you could, and you don't need to make a move because he does have that round 16-19 cover, which 19 especially is going to be the tricky one. I also, on this slide, did note a few guys who scored very well last week. So the main two was To'o and Talau, both scoring really big, 171 and 149. Like Tommy Talau, for example, I haven't got his price here, but he's 650k. I don't believe he's in the top 10 most traded in, but I just think I wouldn't want to be chasing points with him. Like, he's so expensive at 650k. Not for me. And To'o, I know he has been a gun in the past and he's very solid with his floor, but he does have games where I think he just doesn't get the ball. This game was a bit crazy against Manly where, he just got the hat trick. And so he scored huge. So I think they're in the top. I think To'o is in the top 10 most traded in. No, he's not actually. He's not in the entire top 10. So maybe I'm just rambling for nothing. Lomax is probably the one then. He scored massively last week, 170 points. He probably is a top 7 center wing for the rest of the year that you probably do want in your run home team. But on him, his draw isn't the best. He will continue to miss games through Origin as well. So I know the score is very attractive and he's got a lowish break even. I think it's around 30. But even Lomax, for example, I'm not strongly looking at myself this week. Could be completely off the mark with that. What I will quickly look at, though, is the draw over the next 6 weeks. And then we'll try to do more of your questions and just bounce it around. I don't have as many. I've got a lot of pre-planned stuff, but I'm happy to just bounce around. Yes, Raymond, you're right. Yeah, Armstrong has requested a release. That's right. So in terms of the best draw over the next 6, I know I just talked down Tommy Talau, but Manly do have a really good run over the next 6 weeks. Dragons this week, Rabbitohs in the bye week. They do miss round 17 with a bye, which is tricky. Then it's Cowboys, Knights, and then the Titans in round 18 to 20. they actually have a pretty good run for the rest of the year as well. So if you don't own someone like a Ruben Garrick who scored 93 versus Penrith, really looking at him as a strong option, I think, over this period. Roosters players, we've kind of known about this good draw for a while. A lot of us have loaded up on them. Probably make someone like a Tedesco very interesting because, people are still umming and ahhing about Origin teams, who's going to get selected and whatnot. Titans have a pretty good run, so Fafita still looks very enticing this week. Rabbitohs I've got ranked pretty highly. That's why a lot of people are looking at Latrell, Cody Walker, maybe even Alex Johnston when he goes down in price a little bit as well. Then you've got another few teams like Raiders and Sharks. Sharks have got a really good run pretty much for the rest of the season, which is why a lot of people are looking at Mulatalo, even like a Talakai as well. On Lomax, for example, just sticking on him, down the bottom I've got the Dragons. So they've got Manly this week away. He misses round 16 anyway. He'll probably back up in round 17. It's a 4-day turnaround. Then it's Roosters Broncos, and then he misses round 20. He misses round 19 anyway. So in the next 6 weeks, he's only going to be playing the 3 games. I know if he scores big against the Dolphins and Manly, he could have enough points to offset any missed games. Still, it just feels like this period, I just want to be trying to, if you don't already own him, I'd probably just say, look, maybe try to get him in round 21 for the run home, because I don't think that he will have a bye then for the rest of the season, if I'm not mistaken. But I've just got a table below me. I won't go through all of it, but basically, if you want to take a screenshot of this or whatever, I've got round 16, then I've got the teams who play round 16, 16, 17, 16, 19, 19, then 19, 20. Because you need to just because someone asked me on Instagram, actually, in the little questions that I put out, what round of the next 5 is the most important to focus on? That's a very subjective question. It really depends on how well your team is set up. But I do think 17 is going to be a little bit tough because Manly, Titans and Rabbitohs, people are looking at their players. I think round 20 probably will be, round 19, round 20 is actually probably where I'd focus more of my energy. Round 19 already looks like a tougher week to cover for buys for teams. And then round 20, which is after game 3 of Origin, if a player hasn't been rested already for after games 1 and 2, game 3 could be the one that they do get that final rest from their coach. Plus you have teams like the Sharks on the bye who are going to be popular for round 19 cover, Mulatalo, Nikora maybe, Parramatta, a lot of people are going to be holding on to Dillbags, maybe still holding on to Talangi, and then you've also got Dragons, maybe if you got Lomax. So I feel like round 20 could be a tough week. So that's maybe what I'd say. Round 19, 20 is where I'd be starting to think a little bit more about, especially if you're already well set up for 16. Maybe just have more of a think about round 19, 20. I do feel like they will be a little bit difficult. Harry says, remember when I said the Doggies will do bad this year? I probably did say that in the preseason. I'm very pleasingly, it's very pleasing to see the Bulldogs do well. I know they've had a very lean run over the last few years, but, good Sydney club, suburban home base. They've been down in the dumps for a long time, so they probably do deserve some success. Although West Tigers fans are probably looking at them being like, can we have some of that, please? But yeah, they're having a very good year. Very good defensively. That's the biggest thing as well. And just staying in games, very gritty. So yeah, whatever I said about the Bulldogs in the preseason, if I said they were going to be bad, then yes, I 100% take it back. Terrell made minutes with the forwards back for the Roosters and Marn. Hard to predict, but then even then, is it really an issue when, I get you're not saying it's an issue. His minutes could be in the 45, 50s, but look, round 16, no Lindsay Collins, Spencer Lenu's definitely playing again for New South Wales. He was awesome. Terrell May will probably be relied upon for big minutes. So Terrell May, we've got a section on front row forward as well, guys, in case you're interested. There was a few questions around fullback, so I think we'll probably start off there, given that I think a lot of their players, a lot of these players are getting traded in this week. So Latrell Mitchell, he's only the 10th most traded in, but people are looking at maybe the likes of Tedesco. I think Drinkwater is in the top 10 most. Yes, Drinkwater is the 7th most traded out player as well. So I think people are looking at maybe who are the run home fullbacks. Or do you want to do fullbacks or Galvin? Let's do Galvin stuff. There's more questions coming about Galvin that I can see, and then we'll get on to fullbacks. So in terms of the news about Galvin, so the way that it reads is that putting aside all the contract wants to get out of the Tigers issues, purely just physically, it sounds like he's been playing through this hand injury. He's a young kid. I think it sounds like they're just giving him a rest for this week. They do have Aiden Caesar back. That probably was a big contributor because Jaden Sullivan is also out with injury. I have a feeling that if Caesar was still not back yet, maybe then they would have said, Galvin, can you just play this week as well? The fact that they've got Caesar there back this week from suspension, maybe the line of thinking was, look, take a week off, rest it up, maybe also get away from the media spotlight for a week because of this whole contract thing. I have a feeling that Galvin will be back for round 16, and I think it's only going to be a 1 week thing. Round 16, like the Tigers do have a bit of a tougher run, so Titans this week is great, but obviously he misses that. Raiders in 16 is fine. Round 19 it is the Sharks, so it's not great, but he is a warm body, and he does play round 20. So like round 20 is like still, as I said before, it's going to be a tough week. People are looking at potentially selling him. My general sentiment with him is that I think because it's only going to be a week, and it feels like a week where you can still see what happens with Origin teams. Like a very popular trade that people are doing is Galvin to Cody Walker. I don't think Cody will get selected for Origin, although I had this theory about Burton, and I mean he was technically selected, but not in the 17. Amand Walker is 697k, not 597k. Cody Walker is 597k. No, he's definitely not 697. Sorry, if you meant a different Walker, it's Cody. Yeah, Cody Walker is 597k. But yeah, like that's a very popular trade that people are doing. I get it. Cody Walker's got that -5 break even. Broncos aren't seeming as scary of an opposition. They are leaking some points, so I can definitely see merit in that particular trade, especially with that negative break even. Like Cody, I think SuperCoach Gold have got him for a 69 projected score, and with that he would go up in price by 60k. So next week he'd be around 650k, put it roughly that. So you would have to spend 100k next week if you wanted to do that same move. So I get that potential saving that you're only paying 50k to get to Cody Walker. I think you probably just need that conviction that, yeah, Cody Walker's not going to be in that New South Wales team. I think Luai is probably going to stay there. That's my personal view. If like I own Cody Walker, I got him in last week, so I'm obviously not quite in this situation. Just trying to put myself in the shoes of if I didn't have Cody Walker with a -5 break even. I mean, yes, the last 2 weeks have been good. Remember, Cody Walker does have a very low base. Like he scored 2 tries and a try assist for 103 points. A lot of other players would get much bigger scores than that. It is Broncos, so it's not like it's the easiest opposition. Broncos will have everyone except Reece Walsh this week. So yeah, part of me thinks with Galvin, I think you can afford to wait a week. It's not like his break even is exceedingly high as well. It's 64. I think the only way I'd probably recommend that move is I think if you're already good for your round 16 numbers, and you don't necessarily, you can afford to, like what you're doing is just making a straight swap to another round 16 player. You know, Galvin for Cody. Yes, I'd probably prefer Cody based on what I'm seeing out of the Tigers versus the Rabbitohs. Rabbitohs draw wise, I've got a little section here on Cody Walker a little bit later, but in terms of their draw, like they play Manly in the round 16 bye week. After that round 17 bye, it's pretty decent as well. Parramatta, Dolphins, West Tigers, Canberra. They do have a bit of a tougher run from round 22 to round 27 onwards. One good thing is they don't have a bye though for the rest of the year. So one of the reasons I also was happy to go Cody Walker last week was that when I traded him in last week, I was thinking it's a good little period during this Origin schedule in terms of matchups, and he doesn't have a bye for the rest of the season. So at a pinch, if I had to keep him for the rest of the year, at least he's available for me. The Tigers do have a bye in round 26. So yes, straight up, I'd probably prefer Cody Walker versus Galvin right now. But apart from that round 28, that 28 score from Galvin last week, he's had pretty good scores all season. So I don't think you need to rush the move. I think if you're already sitting on 13, 14, round 16 numbers and you're purely just looking at, let me make my team better for the round 16, then I can't fault the move because you do save yourself maybe 50, 60k because Cody Walker will go up in price this week. So yes, that's my general thoughts. And in terms of other options I've got, if you did want to sell Galvin, you have also got Wishart, who's at 501k with a -14 or -16 break even. He's also good. I guess the potential downside with him is that, yes, he will make you some money, but he will probably eventually be a trade out again whenever Munster comes back. You know, with someone like Cody Walker, you trade him in, you don't have to use another trade to get him out again because he plays every game for the rest of the year and he's locked into that Rabbitohs team. So I think for more better job security, Walker's probably the one who I'd go. Then probably Wishart next, and around another 5'8" would be KO Weeks. He plays around 16. I think he's got a fairly low break even himself. But again, similar thing where, you know, when Fogarty will eventually come back for the Raiders, Weeks could be the one who misses out there. And the reason I mention all this is just that I feel like a lot of us are low on trades. And so I feel like if you're trading in guys now, ideally they're guys who, you know, bottomed out in price. But if you had to keep them for the rest of the year, you can. Just so you don't have to waste 2 trades bringing in a guy who then maybe you have to trade out again later. Of course, we can't predict injuries and things, but just thinking about someone who's going to be available for me for like every game of the year. Someone like a Cody will meet that. Wishart and Weeks will eventually probably lose their spot when their replacements do come back into the team. So I think Galvin to Cody, I don't mind that move this week. My general sentiment is if you can hold Galvin this week, keep him. And if he's out next week, then you've got a very easy excuse to say, I need the number for round 16. So I'll make that particular move. On Armstrong, so he's probably in a similar thing where, again, and this week in general feels like a week where you don't need to force trades, just because you still have things up in the air with Origin squads, mainly for New South Wales. I guess on Queensland quickly, Hopgood is in some doubt. Apparently he had some nerve issue that he kept playing through last week. If he's out, does Fafita maybe come back into that team? Potentially, I'd probably say no, just because Felice Kafusi was in that squad and Piakura was ahead of Fafita. On New South Wales side, you've got fullback spot is in doubt. The fact that Edwards has been named makes me think that Edwards will come back into that team. So anyone who's maybe looking at Tedesco, I think he'll be available for you next week. Then you've got centre, obviously the Trell is the big one. But if you're selling Armstrong to the likes of, say, DWZ, I liked as a bottomed out gun, 481k, covers 16, and he versus the Titans in that particular week. And SJ is back as well. One guy who I haven't also mentioned here, I should have actually mentioned him for Galvin, is Jaden Campbell. So Jaden Campbell, I think, is like 458k. He's also 5'8 fullback. So you could actually get him for Armstrong or Galvin. So he scored 75 last week. He's been out, obviously, for plenty of games. In terms of his scores earlier in the season, they were a bit underwhelming. We're looking at 48, 53, and 31. Does have an okay draw. I don't mind that duel. He's generally a low base player, so he does need the attacking stats to come his way. He covers 16 and he covers 19, Jaden Campbell. So I still think I'd prefer maybe Cody, although he's a bit more expensive. I think if you're looking at a 5'8 and you're going a little bit, if you're going cheaper than any of those three I mentioned, then yeah, Jaden Campbell is probably the one, but he's not my preferred because I just think he needs to do a lot to get his points. Like last week, he scored 75. Although to be fair, he only had a try contribution. Actually, most of his scores are actually in base power. He had one line break assist and one try contribution. So you take out those 12 points, he still would have scored 63 in base power. So actually, look, maybe he's turned a corner, but I don't know. Gut feel tells me he's not my particular flavor of a guy. Another cheaper one, I know I haven't actually got here on the list, but is it Matt Fionney? Is that how you pronounce it? He's been named again for the Dragons. He's got a negative break even as well. He's 316k, yeah, negative 36 break even. His two scores, he scored 78 last week in that route against the Tigers. I should say second half route. And he scored 62 the week before that as well. Just having a quick look on the NRL SuperCoach website just to see. He scored a try in the first game and then a double last week. So he's probably a typical winger who has low base, needs tries. Given that I kind of didn't love the draw for the Dragons long term, and just centers in general in SuperCoach is such a he was goal kicking. Sorry, my bad. I misread the stats here. Campbell was goal kicking. Okay, good shout. Not a bad shout then actually if he's goal kicking. I don't mind that. On Fionney, he's very attacking stat reliant with those tries. Not the best run coming up, and I just think the center position is so stacked. I've got a section later on your center wing targets. I just feel like I need to not worry now about trying to make too much money in my centers and just start locking in the guys who I just want for the season, because it's such a high upside scoring position. Like that slide before I showed, To'o 171, Lomax 170, Talau 149, Stephen Crichton scored 128 last week. Even centers who don't do it week to week, it's just a position where you can get so many big scores. And so someone like a Matt Fionney playing for the Dragons, who, look, they're not going to score 56 every week. So he's purely a cash grab. I wouldn't say anything more than that. So QXYS is asking Armstrong to Fionney or Talakai. I don't love either, to be honest. Talakai is probably where I'd go just because of the good long-term draw, and he's got dual flexibility, which is pretty handy. But yeah, so just summarizing on Armstrong, because I've kind of gone on a bit of a tangent. I think Armstrong, he's fine to sell this week. I think if you like a particular option, if it's Jaden Campbell, I like DWZ myself for that round 16 cover. If you're looking further ahead to say round 19 cover, with Trindle playing at left side 5'8", I think Mulatalo actually slightly edges it for me over DWZ. I think he's probably shown more of this. He's shown with Trindle playing in that team, he was averaging 90 early in the year. So for sure, Mulatalo is the definition of a bottomed out gun. He's 493k. He was getting up to 800k earlier this year. So I think if there's a particular guy that you fancy, I don't mind moving on Armstrong, especially if you need the numbers this week with the Bulldogs on a bye, who do have plenty of us have lots of Bulldogs players. So I'm okay with the Armstrong sell because just with this whole requesting a release, Fletcher Sharp looking good. He's been named in the reserves, so he could be injured but named in the reserves, but his quad injury was minor. If he's been named in the reserves, it probably makes me think he's pretty much available for selection, and he hasn't been selected. So it's probably time to say, yeah, cool, thanks Armstrong for your efforts. You made us some money, scored a hat-trick in Madrigal, which was lovely, but yeah, time to cash in. He's like a straight swap to a DWZ or like a Mulatalo. So very tempting moves there. I've got Kale Iro. This question came more from Instagram about like, is he a season keeper? With Iro at the moment, my thoughts are, yes, he's not a season keeper because whilst he's really solid, like his floor is basically 50 each week, he's just not getting those big attacking stats. Like he hasn't cracked 100 all season long. I think with my trade situation, I've got other issues to fix like Armstrong, etc. I'm looking at Iro as someone just get me through the bye period. And then I think after that, because the Sharks cover round 19, which is going to be a difficult week, maybe round 20 when they're on the bye, maybe that's when I look to cash in Iro at that point. But for the time being, I don't think he's an urgent sell. Neither is Fa'alongo. He's been named at fullback again. Pappy is expected to come back next week. So for sure, you can keep Fa'alongo this week with a 47 break even. It's a decent matchup as well. It's an okay matchup, Warriors away. It's not amazing. But even next week, Xavier Coates will be playing for Queensland. And so Fa'alongo could get a spot on the wing. So for sure, I don't think you need to rush him out of your team. Same with Talangi. So Talangi, I don't know where he actually features on the top 10 traded out. Let me have a quick look-see here. So he's number 7 on the most traded out, Talangi. So he's now up, and I see the reason why. Like he's at a really good price to sell, 605k. Named on the wing, which is decent. It is against the Roosters, but like the way I see it with him, with a break-even of 44, he'll probably go out and score about 33 in base. And so he's going to go down to maybe 5-10k maximum. I feel like with Talangi, again, I'd be wanting to sit on my hands, see what happens next week with Origin teams, injuries. You don't have to force sell him this week. Even if you wanted to get like DWZ or Mulatalo, they're both cheaper than him. And neither of the two have got like really low negative break-evens where they're going to shoot up massively in price. I'd be really happy to see another week, see what happens, and then maybe next week you can make a move on Talangi. He could be maybe your ticket via duels to go and get like a Tedesco or Latrell, for example, next week. So I don't think you need to settle for anyone this week. You maybe have that flexibility to go get a real big gun next week who could be like a captaincy option for you next week. So Talangi, I feel like you definitely don't need to be rushing him out of your team. So I feel that way with Iro, Fa'alongo, and Talangi. Same with Galp. To be fair, you don't need to rush any of these guys out. I'd probably say Armstrong, based on this news and him being dropped in favour of Fletcher Sharp, he's probably the one who I'd say he's the first one to sell, then Galvin, and then the other three I'd probably try to hold at least a week. In terms of other guys who have flagged, we already mentioned Hopewadi from Manly. So he's bottom dollar. He's got a negative break even. He plays 16. He should probably play 19 as well. Turbo's apparently expected back around 18. I'm probably just not going to be looking at him though, just because of what I mentioned with he's only available at fullback. That's one. And two, I'm just getting to a point where now, like, I think the downgrades who free up cash, but then you need to sell again in the future. It's using a lot of trades now. Ideally, I think you'd be moving on your cash cows to your bottomed out guns who you can hold for the rest of the year. That only requires the use of one trade. Someone here has also mentioned Jason Saab as a bit of a cheapie, just touching on Manly. So Manly do have a good run, as I touched on earlier in the stream. He's 382k, he's very cheap, 40 break even. I don't hate the Jason Saab shout. You just have to realize that it's going to be, a roller coaster. He's got a low score this season of 8. I don't know if that was injury affected. Apart from that, it's a low score of 21 and a high score of 96. Like, you will get this with Jason Saab. So, look, I don't hate it, but again, you just have to maybe wonder, will you keep this guy for the rest of the season, and do you want him in your team for the rest of the year? You could play him on matchups. I don't hate that. Barry Tui has confirmed Armstrong to Lee Leopards next season. Okay, so that sounds like he's going to the Super League next year. Okay, so if he's going to the Super League next year, he's not going to be long-term in that Knights team. So, yeah, there could be a very good case for even Fletcher Sharp, for example. I have got him noted here. He is fullback only as well, but look, even with him, he'll eventually drop out when Ponga comes back too. So whilst he looked good, scored 62 last week, I'm just trying to stay away from the guys who I have to eventually trade out again. So yeah, lots of thoughts, I guess, on some of those guys. So yeah, hopefully you all found that useful. We'll quickly finish up on the bottomed out guns because I'm seeing a couple of people mention it here. So I've touched on DWZ and Mulatalo already. I actually, of the two, slightly prefer Mulatalo just because I think, so I've got the draw for all of these guys for the rest of the year. If you just look at the Sharks run, it's ridiculous. Like, based on my own color shading, I don't have them playing anyone who's even like the lower red shaded. Basically, that means they're not versing Broncos, Melbourne, Roosters, or Penrith for the rest of the year. It's Dolphins, Bulldogs in 17 is tough, but then Titans, West Tigers, and then run home, Cowboys, Rabbitohs, Titans, Knights, Dragons, Warriors, Canberra. Like, insane. So definitely Mulatalo. If you need maybe to get in someone this week, you could get Mulatalo, or he could be a really strong round 17 trade and option. The thing that slightly edges him over DWZ, in my opinion, is I think we've seen more of him this season have those bigger scores than DWZ, especially with Trindle back on the left-hand side. I think that's really good for him. The run home is much better in my opinion, and DWZ does have I know it's a small thing, but he's got a very annoying bye in round 27, which is a week where coaches notoriously rest players, and we're going to be short players anyway. Adding in another guy you're going to lose that week is going to be annoying. Just mentioning that now because people will run out of trades, and you will be sitting there with another player in your team that is not going to be playing. Whereas at least Mulatalo, if he's not rested, he will be playing in round 27. Hamole Olaquatu is not a bottomed out gun in terms of his price, but he's bottoming out. So I just wanted to flag him here. So people who I know, someone's mentioned here about what would you do with Dylan Lucas? I would keep Dylan Lucas for sure. Like, he doesn't play round 16, but he's pretty much locked into an 80-minute role. I feel like with the likes of Dylan Lucas, Kai Pierce-Paul, if you've got some of these guys who've just been kind of doing a job for you, but not like setting the world alight, I think you can kind of keep them. The Knights do cover round 19, and then like post that, round 20 onwards, Manly, you've got a pretty good run. Olaquatu, because of this low score he got last week, you could pick him up in the low 500s, and then you're pretty much moving on to a set and forget gun. I just don't feel like now's the right time because of this really high break even that he's got, and he'll probably miss round 16 anyway with Orid. He'll miss round 16 and 17, but like round 18, for example, I think that could be a great week to maybe move on to him. Oh, is Lucas on the bench this week? Okay. Even then, Lucas on the bench, they could do some last minute shuffling. There's always seemed to be some shuffling with Frizzell and Lucas and Kai Pierce-Paul. So even if he's on the bench, I still think he could be okay. He's got a pretty good work rate. So like even if he comes on for 40 minutes, he could still punch out 40. He's got a 53 break even as well, so he won't lose that much money. I'd be okay to maybe keep him this week. Otherwise, look, if you've got the ability to say downgrade him to Mulatalo to free up money, that helps you get another move elsewhere, then I also don't mind that kind of a move as well. On Siva Talakai, so he's 396k. We just don't really know with Wilton when exactly he's due to be coming back. Supposedly it was a 4 to 5 week AC joint injury, and that was reported last week. The annoying thing with Talakai is just that if it's 4 or 5 weeks last week, round 19, which is probably the week that you actually want Talakai, he could just be back on the bench again. And he was doing a really good job for the Sharks on the bench, so I think that would be definitely where he'd go back. And just looking at his scores when he's coming off the bench, I know he's cheap at 396k, but it's just like I'm looking back at his scores of 35, 14, 48, 56, 54, 30, 31, 23, 15. Like, there's a lot of low scores in here. I know he's been named to start, but again, it feels like you're going to have to use trades again where you bring him in. He might make you a little bit of money, be a good, solid option, and then you have to trade him out again. The duel is handy. I guess he plays all of the remaining bye weeks after round 16 and round 20. But yeah, it's just that thing of like you'll eventually have to trade him out again. Reese is asking thoughts on Marzu to DWZ or Whiten as a pod. Look, I haven't looked too deep into Jack Whiten's numbers, but he's just historically not a Supercoach option. I know he's at a different team now. He's 444k, scored 81 last week, but I mean, if you ignore that, like the 5 weeks before that, 29, 60, 25, 33, 44, then 34. he's just not the guy for me personally. So I wouldn't be looking at Wyden. Marzu, I have flagged here as a bottomed out gun. He's got a 91 break even, 491k. But honestly, I don't think this is someone who I would be looking to prioritize. I just don't think, not until Ponga's coming back. Until Ponga's back, I'm not really looking at Marzu. Similar thing with Tungo. Until Cleary's back, not really looking at him. So in terms of moving on Marzu, I don't mind moving him on. You could keep him because he does cover round 19, but if you would like stuff it, I need to sell him. I like moving him on to DWZ for round 16 cover. If you're wanting to keep that round 19 cover, and who I prefer as a season-long guy is probably Mulatalo, in my view. Can you wait a week on Mulatalo? Reckon the Dolphins can hold out? Yeah, Mulatalo is definitely not a must trade in. He's got a 59 break even, so even if he scores well and scores like 80, 90, he'll go up in price to like low 500s. It's not going to be crazy. And then he does miss round 16. He can definitely be a wait until round 17. So again, if you're looking to maybe save trades, absolutely no reason to rush in Mulatalo, but just flagging him that he could be a very good pickup in round 17. Because round 19 against the West Tigers, like people will be piling into Sharks players in round 19 because that's the team that will probably have the highest ceiling, which is why people are going to be piling on Nico Hines if he doesn't play Origin. Just realizing I'm going like 36 minutes already, so I think I'll quickly touch on fullbacks because I think some people are looking at the likes of Latrell, Tedesco. I've kind of put a sentence here which is my own, not necessarily quoting myself, but I'm saying I think it could be a good week to wait and see what happens with round 16 Origin teams, mainly with fullback. My gut feeling is that now that Edwards has been named to play for Penrith this week, I think he's going to be the one that New South Wales will select for Game 2, Game 3. He was who they went with originally for Game 1. It was only because of an injury that Teddy went back into that team. So I think with Edwards, he's probably who I think will get selected, which means that Teddy will be available for round 16. And he'll be versing the Bulldogs who, look, they've been good, don't get me wrong, but they will be missing a few Origin players as well. But the games outside of that are really good. Parramatta this week, Bulldogs, then the West Tigers, and then the Roosters before missing round 19. Does have a 43 break even. So I think probably the question maybe isn't, the question I guess is Teddy and Latrell. They're probably the ones that people are looking at this week. I will throw in CNK, who's been actually excellent so far this year for SuperCoach. People are probably wondering about, is Drinky a trade out to one of these guys? So Drinky, I said before, 7th most traded out player. He's got 109 break even, and he's got a matchup of away versus the Raiders. Now, I read a stat earlier. I'm just going to try to see if I can find it again very quickly. But apparently the Raiders have been very good at defending against opposition fullbacks. Actually, just going to quickly refer to NRL SuperCoach Stats because it's the best website out there for this. If we look at position versus team. So far this season, the Raiders have been 11th to defending opposition fullbacks. So it doesn't scream like the best matchup. Although the Raiders can, the Raiders can league points on their day, but it's not a great matchup. And yes, the 109 break even is annoying. He will lose some value. It does feel luxury. So I think that's what, who was asking that here? John T is asking, is Drinky to Teddy a luxury trade this week? It is luxury just because, look, Drinky is still playing. For sure, matchup-wise, I'd prefer Tedesco's. So just having a quick look here. So basically, I'm sorry, I can't find the stat, but basically the Raiders aren't very good at defending against opposition fullbacks. But Drinkwater has been good for most of the season. Last week was a bit of an off game for the Cowboys. Warriors came to play. Raiders coming off a bye as well. They could be rejuvenated too, but Cowboys will have their full Origin contingent not backing up from Origin, so I think that's big for them. So yes, Drinkwater to Teddy I do think is luxury. The Drinkwater to Latrell move, if people are looking at Latrell, to me now, like last week probably was the last week to really get Latrell. I know it sucks to say that because he's got 150 and he's going up in price with a break even of, 40? Broncos at home, I think he will still score well. But I think he will get selected for 16 for Origin, so he'll miss that game, and then he will miss round 17, and then he misses round 19, Latrell. So it just feels really, really tough to recommend Latrell as a buy. I'd lean Teddy if you are desperate to get one this week, because I do think Teddy's not likely to play for New South Wales. I think it's going to be Edwards. If you just want absolute security on someone, Nico Klukstad, he's obviously not going to be playing Origin. He's Kiwi, and so he plays round 16 against the Titans. He's got the best base average of fullbacks that I've got on this table here. A base average of 42. Scored a double last week for 100. His season average is 83, which is actually ridiculous when you think about it. He's just kind of not gone under the radar, but like he's just been sneaky good. So I think CNK is also a very worthwhile shout. It covers round 17, which is going to be a tricky mini bye week to cover as well. So I do think Teddy's the one who I think if you want to make for sure get someone this week with better upside than say Drinky, he's the guy who I'd go for. There is still some risk that Teddy does play New South Wales for New South Wales game 2-3, but I do think it's more likely going to be Edwards in there. So Hamish is saying, is Drinkwater to Teddy a viable if you think Teddy is a season keeper? Look, if you think Teddy's a season keeper, then I think for sure. Then you can just lock it in because you are gaining a bit on price, because Teddy with a break even of 43, you suspect that he's going to be going up in price, and Drinkwater going down with 109 break even. And if you look at Teddy's draw for the rest of the year, misses round 19, round 20 is a bit tough against Melbourne. After that though, it's a great run for the rest of the season. Manly, Dolphins, bye in round 23, Parramatta, Titans, Canberra, and then the Rabbitohs. And I feel like with the way that the Roosters, they're playing very well, but they're sitting like 8th on the ladder. So obviously things could turn around definitely by the end of the season in terms of having to rest players or not. But yeah, look, Teddy could be definitely a run home fullback. Edwards probably won't be in that camp, just assuming Cleary comes back. Edwards without the goal kicking probably won't just be the caliber that he's been so far this year. If I had to think of my two fullbacks for the run home, as Teddy would, the way that he's going could definitely be one. I haven't looked at the Knights draw for the rest of the year, so I'm not sure where that sits for, say, someone like a Ponga, because like Ponga will come back, and like he's coming off from the loose Frank, the foot injury. I mean, maybe the performance isn't going to be that great. To be fair, Ponga comes back. He'll have a bye 21, Panthers, Tigers, Sharks. The last 3 weeks are really good. South, Titans, Dolphins. So maybe Ponga you can flit in and out there for the end of the year. Someone like a Teddy is very doable, very reliable. He definitely could be someone. And then Walsh could be really good round 20 as well. He's got a good run home. Dolphins should not be a green team, by the way. Yeah, that's probably fair to say. But I've got them as a green team more because they do sometimes still concede points. They still can score points and win and get 2 points on the ladder, but they still can concede points. But yeah, maybe I should put them as a yellow shading. It's all subjective. Enjoy the coffee, mate. Thank you, Benergy. Very much appreciate that $5. I'm going to work tomorrow, so I'll definitely be needing that coffee. But yeah, I think Teddy will feature in my run home fullbacks most likely. Drinkwater, and another thing that I will say is a pro for selling Drinkwater is that it's the high break even. Misses round 16, comes back to Penrith and then Manly, and then he misses round 19. Like, if you don't sell Drinkwater this week, I think most people will probably sell him next week anyway to like a Nico Klukstad or a Tedesco. So if you're only bringing the trade forward 1 week, it's not terrible. And he also does have a bye again in round 25, and his run home is a little bit more mixed than probably Teddy or Latrell, or more mixed than Teddy, probably equal to Latrell and probably worse than Reece Walsh. So I think, yeah, Drinkwater probably won't feature my run home fullback. So I think if you're really, again, you're thinking, I want to chase that this week, go Teddy. I can't fault the move because I do think, yeah, I would prefer Teddy over Drinkwater for the rest of the year. And I've made my thoughts on Latrell. I do probably rank Teddy slightly above CNK just because I think that run home is way better. But CNK is really, really solid, and he's been putting up really good scores for the entire season. So definitely can't knock him. And we know that when SJ was fit and firing last year, it was only good for CNK, and also good for DWZ as well. Alrighty, so I think we've talked about fullbacks, talked about cash cows. I'll quickly, what do you guys want to talk about? We haven't talked about like Jerome Hughes at all, who's actually the most traded in player this week. And I think if someone was asking about, if you have both a Jerome Hughes and Wishart, is that too risky? I don't mind it because the Storm do have a pretty good run. This week's not ideal. It's not the easiest, but it's Dolphin, Raiders, and then the West Tigers in round 18 could be really good. Jerome Hughes is actually the second most traded in player. Surprisingly, Cody Walker is number 1, but we've spoken about him already. So yeah, look, putting flatly, I think Jerome Hughes is an excellent purchase. I thought he was a really good option last week. People were thinking about him or Moses last week. I'm glad I suggested Hughes over Moses. That was mainly because of the origin risk for Moses, but Yeah, Jerome Hughes obviously killed it last week with 117 points. Someone had asked, is Hines to Hughes still okay because of Hines' 208 break even? I think if you've held on to Hines through last week, I think you just probably keep now. He's been named this week against the Dolphins. He's a captaincy option or vice captain who plays the first game. You definitely hold this week. I think you're just going to have to cop that initial break even. You're going to have to cop that break even. Look, if he scores 130 against the Dolphins, yes, he'll lose some money, but very quickly he's going to probably stay. He'll probably stay around that high 700s, low 800s. And everyone is going to want Hines by round 19 if he's available for the Sharks. So Hines, if you still have, I definitely wouldn't be selling. In terms of getting into Hughes, I guess this is similar to say, like, if you can do Galvin to Hughes via duels, I think, look, it's fine. I've made my thoughts already on Galvin. But yeah, basically, yeah, Jerome Hughes I think is an awesome purchase because really good run over the next 4 weeks. Wishart as well, a bit of a shorter term option because I think Munster's likely to be coming back around round 20. But we know that the Storm are pretty good on the ladder. And so, they don't have to have Munster back immediately. They could afford to give him some games extra rest. So I think Wishart is still fine as a purchase. The price feels a bit gross knowing that he was in the 300s, but look, negative break even, covers 16, doesn't cover 19, but does play round 20. I don't mind Wishart either as a bit of a shorter term cash grab. Tony Vo's asking, what about Burton to Hughes? So this is interesting. So Burton has had overall a really good season Supercoach wise. So I have added him in here as well. So Burton, season average of 69 points, 39 points last week against Parramatta, so not ideal. But before that, before the 39 last week, his previous lowest score was 35, and that happened in round 3. So between then, his lowest score was 67. He was absolutely killing it. Burton to Hughes selling Burton isn't ideal because I think he is a really good option. But look, he does miss this week. He will miss 16 and he will miss 19 as well. In terms of backup period, I can't remember actually. Let me have a quick look. See, I've got it somewhere. He's got a 4-day turnaround after round 20. So I think Burton will probably back up in round 20. The run home for the Bulldogs it's okay. It's not amazing. But yes, if you're looking at the short term, between rounds 15 to round 20, he'll miss 15, 16, and 19. So he's going to miss 3 games. So he'll only be available for 17, 18, and then 20. So he'll miss 3 out of 6 games. If that's enough for you to say, look, based on the total points, I projected him on a season average basis, 207 points. If you compare that in the next 6 weeks to, say, Jerome Hughes, who I've given 240 points. Is that correct? Oh, no, it's 370. I think it was 370 because, it's 370 points for Hughes. Look, that's 150, 170 points. If you feel like it's worth it to use that extra trade of Burton to Hughes, and I say extra because Burton could be a season keeper, then I think fine, go ahead. Because you are making substantial gains, I think, on your points. I did say this about Lomax last week, and Lomax absolutely killed it and scored 170. So you do need to be wary with these gun players. Any given week, they can go 120, 130, and then all of a sudden, if the guy you've traded to goes maybe 70, the guy that you've traded out, you're only 20 points better off, and you've used a trade. So that's the only thing I'd be wary of. But yes, I think Burton to Hughes is perfectly fine. There's probably not a lot of other guys like Tamara Martin. He's probably too expensive now at 643k, and I think with SJ back as well, it's probably going to diminish his role in the team. But just wanted to shout him out because he's been on an absolute tear. SJ, if people were looking at SJ, he's got 155 break even. So I'd probably want to hold fire, I guess, on getting him. Maybe you can get him for a cheaper price. But yeah, Burton to Hughes, I don't mind. Galvin to Hughes, I think, is also an upgrade. If you don't need to sell Galvin, then don't do it. But if you think you definitely want to lock it in, get that gun player, then yeah, look, Galvin to Hughes, I don't hate that either. That's actually the second most popular trade of the round. Galvin to Cody is actually the first most popular trade this week. What's Hamish saying? Hamish is saying, held on to Hines. Would you rather sell to Hughes considering his break-even and form at the start of the year with Trindle, or hold and sell Galvin to Hughes? In your situation, Hamish, I for sure would be going Galvin to Hughes. I know Hines at the beginning of the year with Trindle wasn't killing it. I say killing it, and that's killing it relative to his own standards. Because if you actually look at his scores like 20, like sure, the 26 is not great, but then it was 75, 53, 94, 82. Like that 4-week period of 94, 82, 75, 53. There's not many other halfbacks who are kind of even matching that. Like doing the numbers top of my head, what's that? 290 points in 4 games. That's still a season average over 70. So not many halfbacks are actually, like even Hines at his worst is still matching the likes of a Hughes, etc. So I still think Hines I would be happy to hold on to, because I think, especially just these next few weeks, I'm assuming he won't play for New South Wales, unfortunately, game 2, game 3. Bulldogs in 17 is going to be a bit tough, but Titans in 18, Tigers in 19, like people will be selling big gun players to get Hines back in for that week because he will be the 100% mass captain player in round 19. If you can afford Galvin to Hughes and keep Hines, for sure I'd be doing that. Even if you couldn't do Galvin to Hughes and Hines was the only option to sell to Hughes, I probably wouldn't do it, to be honest. Benny G, would I sell Tamara Martin or Galvin? I haven't answered it, Benny, but if I had to sell, it'd be Galvin, I think, because Tamara Martin, they both cover round 16, but Tamara Martin does have that negative break even, and his form has been really good. With SJ back, yes, maybe his points dip, but like you can maybe cash him in. Whereas with Galvin, I know he's been solid so far this year, but yeah, Tamara Martin, I'd probably just keep taking that cash rise. Are there any must-haves this week? No, this week there's actually no there's no must-haves this week because we're a week before another bye round. The only I haven't spoken about centers yet. I might actually just move to that. And then I'll talk about front row and then second row because I know people are looking at Preston replacements. I've got a slide here which is my top centre wing targets. He's not a must-have because of break-evens. I'm just going to double-check I've actually got this break-even correct because it looks lower than I thought. Oh no, it's correct. But it's Ruben Garrick, 747k, 85 break-even, scored 93 last week against Penrith of all teams, and he did this like missing so many goals. Like he easily could have turned up. Because the thing with Garrick is at centre, his base is so solid. So if I look at purely his base points, so he would have got 4 points net tackles, 10 in tackle bar, so that's 14, 12 in offload, so what's that, 26? Then he had 33 points in runs. So what did I say, 26 plus 33? Like almost 60 in pure base. Add in the goal kicking, which he actually lost points for goal kicking last week. Missed some tackles. Like he is, in my opinion, an absolute top 7 centre wing. Probably top 5. If I had to, so what I've actually got on this slide is I've actually looked at just the centre wings who are averaging the most this season, and I've kind of got the ones who are ranked. So Lomax, because of that 170, is actually number 1 for averaging centre wing this season. Number 2 is Manu. Val is 3rd. Dom Young is 4th. Garrick is 5th. 6th is Karaz. 7th is actually Brian To'o because of that big score last week. And then 8th is Asako. So obviously, if I'm looking at if I'm thinking what are my ideal top 7 centre wings for the run home, it would probably be Lomax, Manu, Dom Young, Val, Garrick, Karaz, and then that's 6 already. So then you're making a call on like To'o, Asako, Mulatalo, DWZ, but for sure like Garrick 100% is in my top 5. So I think Garrick, if I'm thinking of a must-have, I know the break even doesn't suggest it, but it is a good matchup against the Dragons. Then it's the Rabbitohs next week. And then end of season, I think he plays it. Is that correct? Have I got him playing the Tigers twice, round 25, round 27? I'm just going to double check that if that's actually the draw for Manly, because that seems a bit strange. Yeah, that's actually incorrect. He plays the Sharks in round 27. My bad. Apologies for that. I was looking at that thinking, surely not. But either way, Garrick scoring 93 versus Penrith, he's got 100 versus the Broncos. He got 69 versus Melbourne. He can get good scores. His lowest score this season, apart from that score of 1, was 38 versus the Titans. Even then, that game Manly scored points. The ball just didn't go to him. So for sure, Garrick, I would look at as, close to a must-have centre wing for the run home. Maybe not this week because of the 85 break even, but it's a really good matchup. So for sure, I think I would be looking at Garrick. I kind of spoke about Lomax already. Someone was asking earlier about Karaz, the CSL. Definitely not. Karaz was moved to the left on game day, and you saw how many points the right side of the Bulldogs scored. Crichton scored a double. Blake Wilson scored 1. I definitely think that Karaz is for sure a season keeper. Wouldn't worry about selling him either, especially if he gets to stick on that right wing. I guess the only concern is that with Adokar being out for so many weeks, do they persist with Karaz on the left wing? But remember, Bulldogs left wing or left side with Kikau, etc., was actually really good earlier this year. So look, either way, I don't think you need to worry about Karaz. Thoughts on Timoko as a pod? This is my thing. I keep harping on about it, but center is such a stacked position. Just then I rattle off like 6 guys who I'm like, yeah, pretty locked into what I'd like in my center wing. There's just not a lot of scope in your centers to really have these pods. I guess if you, like someone mentioned it earlier in the chat, saying there's not really that many good fullbacks around 19. A really good play could just be, flip one of your centers down to fullback for the bye period. So like Ruben Garrick, for example, people, actually I haven't mentioned it, but people who are selling Drinkwater to Garrick, because of the break-evens with Garrick at 85, probably wouldn't force that particular move, but for sure Garrick in for Drinkwater around 16, I can see as a very popular move. So that's probably one thing I'd say is maybe factor that in as a move you might want to do next week. With Timoko, his scores are just a bit in such a high upside position. Like he's averaging 60. It's not like he's cheap. He's 527k. For sure, I'd prefer the likes of Mulatalo, who are cheaper, who earlier this season was showing he has a huge ceiling, scoring 100 plus. DWZ, we know, has got that big ceiling. We saw it last year. We've seen glimpses of it this year. I just prefer the wingers compared to centers, generally in Supercoach, except for Garrick, he's goal kicking, so he's a bit of an exception as well. So that's my thoughts, I guess, on Timoko. I just feel like he's solid, but if I'm looking at my top 7 center wing, he's just not in there. There are other pods who I've mentioned, like maybe in the last couple of weeks, like Brian Kelly and Nick Meaney. They're probably guys who you maybe can consider. Like with Brian Kelly, like he's super solid, 63, I think he scored last week, or 65. But he probably lacks that big, high upside ceiling that some of these other guys do have as well. Martin Fan is asking, is Lomax still a trade-in as a season keeper with harder matchups for the rest of the season? Look, Lomax is also another one who he has the ability to score well against good opposition. But he's definitely so far, I think, benefited from a softer draw for the early part of the season. So, for example, from rounds 1 to 7, they didn't verse Sharks, Melbourne, Roosters, or Penrith. And in that period of time, 108, 44, 98, 51, 112, 93, 82. As soon as he got to some tougher matchups against the Roosters, it was 62 in round 8. Then it was Sharks, 49. 84 against the Rabbitohs, 42 against the Bulldogs, who we know have been pretty good defensively, and then 170 versus the Tigers. So the thing with Lomax I will mention is that, just based on what we've seen so far this year, he's obviously amazing, but he does tend to follow the draw. So when it's good matchups, drag and score points, he's the goal kicker, he will benefit. Tougher matchups, they won't score as many. He will be solid himself because he's got a good base of 35 this year, so he'll easily get 40, 45 on any given week. But he's not probably going to be getting those 80, 90s that you want. So I think with him, I'm looking because if you look at the rest of the season, they do need to play the Roosters in round 18. They do play the Penrith Panthers in 21, and they play the Melbourne Storm in 22. So I'm looking at Lomax as, yes, he's probably a season keeper, but it also doesn't quite feel like the right time to bring him in because he only has the Dolphins in round 17. And then if you take out the Dolphins and then Manly this week, which he can still score fine, but if you take out Dolphins and Manly, within this period of time, he's going to miss games through Origin, and the games he will play is against Roosters and then Penrith, and then Melbourne 22. Even round 23 against the Bulldogs, we know they're pretty good defensively. So round 24 is when it's better. It's Titans, Sharks, Parramatta, Canberra. Even then, Sharks is in there. It's not the best. So long story short, Lomax is really, really good. But I do feel like he has benefited a lot from really good matchups so far this year. And I think the matchups that are there to come, I'd probably guess he's not going to average 83. This could be completely crazy of me. He could absolutely keep killing it. And that could be because of the hot form of being selected for Origin, playing very well. But I do have a feeling that if I were to guess what his season average would be for the rest of the year, it's probably going to be more in the 70 to 75s, which is still really good, but maybe it's not reflective of that 83 average, because remember that 83 is including a huge 170, and those points are gone. We can't get them back. If you own Lomax already, then obviously you're laughing. But in terms of a new trade-in, like for sure I'd prefer Garrick over Lomax right now as a trade-in. That's my personal thoughts. But look, if you can go Armstrong to Lomax and lock him in, then sure. If you can even do Talangi to Lomax, like, don't hate it. just be worried that he will miss some games, and I do think the matchups coming up are a little bit tougher. Which one is a better pod, Brian To'o or Osako? Yeah, that's the thing. So I haven't actually got To'o's draw for the rest of the year. I guess my slight concern with To'o is that he can be up and down. Last week was up for sure. But like, he's had 124, a 98, and 171 this season. Those are 3 really big scores, and an 86. But he's had more bad scores than good scores. Like it's 45, 49, 42, 48, 49, 34, 56, 55. And those other 4 scores have bolstered up the season average. So I think his season average of 71, it comes in like these waves. And I think I like him as a round 20 target because Penrith don't actually have that bad of a run for the rest of the year, and Penrith are Penrith. But even when Cleary was there, he wasn't getting as much good ball, and Luai was really killing his outside men where To'o was playing on the left. So, I mean, Osako does have a fairly tough run for the rest of the year as well, but he's goal kicking, and he's got a good base as well. I think for the run, I think I'd probably still lean Osako, just taking the guy who's got the goal kicking. That's my personal opinion. All right, so I haven't really touched yet on front row. So I know people early in the stream were asking about Curran. I think Curran, I would be keeping him. I wouldn't stress about him. He was already going to be missing this week. And I saw from Adam DeRusi mentioning that Curran was actually fine in the sheds after the game. So that's a good sign for sure, because it obviously didn't look good when he got cabbed off the field. He was going to miss this week anyway. He'll be around 16 number. Front row forward is also just a meh position. So I looked at season averages. Only 6 front row forwards are averaging over 60 so far this year, and only 1 is over 70. So the 1 is AFB, who's obviously for sure the top front row forward to go for. Next after that, you've got like Payne Haas, Tarpany, Barnett. Barnett is actually one I do like as a bit of a pod. And then you've got Terrell May and Jack DeBellin. So basically, if you look at active front row forwards, so excluding the likes of a Benjamin Takura and guys who've played maybe 1 or 2 games, Curran is the 9th best front row forward this year. And it's such a low upside position. Apart from AFB, no one else is really killing you. Tarpany is probably the one who I'd say is the next most likely to have a ceiling, because he's played bigger minutes in 2 of his last 4 games. And in those 2 games, I think he went like 110, 75, I think he went. Like he's posted up some... We know that when he gets some minutes, he's really good because he's got the best base PPM of these guys, averaging over 60, excluding Curran. 0.85 for AFB, 0.81 for Barnett, 0.85 for Haas, 0.98 for Tarpany, and then 0.86 for DeBellin. Curran's is 0.92, but he doesn't average over... Oh, he does actually average over 60. Did I get that right? Maybe he hasn't. I think I've got that wrong. I don't think he averages... He averages 57, sorry. Yeah, he averages 57 because of the last week's injury. In any case. In terms of front row, look, AFB is the absolute target. If you can afford AFB somehow, yes, I think he's perfectly fine as a trade-in. Like, for example, if you're selling Preston, there's not a whole heap of second row screaming their name out, but AFB is standing out as a round 16 option. If you've got the deals to go Preston to Fanil Blake, for example, Fanil Blake's more or less bottomed out. He's got 104 break even, but like he just, even if he scores 60, he'll only go down maybe like to 710k. Don't really see him going down much further than that. And we know he loves scoring a try. That's the reason he's got such a good ceiling, is that he's a noted try scorer. I think he's equal for the Warriors for top try scorer for their team, which is ridiculous. So that's one thing I'll mention. I don't think you need to rush out Curran. If you want round 16 cover, but you can't afford Barnett. If you can't afford Fanil Blake. Barnett is on a pretty good run, 3 games in a row. He's got a 3-round average of 77. Playing pretty decent minutes as well. He's got a good PPM and he's dual. So I don't mind him as a shout if you are looking for someone a little bit cheaper. Or you can go Tarpany, who it's hard to say. I mean, Hudson Young is back, so there's one extra forward in that team. But we know Tarpany, when he plays the bigger minutes, like is a top quality option. His base average is 54 for the season. And we know around this origin period, he can step up. So I actually don't hate Joe Tarp. I'd probably rank outside of AFB. Payne Haas would be there, but just with origin, he's going to be missing games here and there until round 20. So right now, I'd probably say Tarpany AFB number 1, then Tarpany, then probably Barnett. But for the rest of the season, it'd probably be Haas number 2, Tarpany 3, Barnett 4, with AFB being the number 1. But just feels like a bit of a low upside position. In terms of when to get Haas, because someone's just asked it, yeah, I'd probably say post-Origin, because like he plays around, like Broncos do play around 20, but that could be a week that they do give him a rest, because he did back up last week. Maybe he doesn't back up again in round 20. I'd probably say round 21 maybe is when I'd look at maybe locking in someone like a Payne Haas just for the rest of the season. I haven't really covered Preston replacements. I'm just going to have a quick look, because he is one of the top traded out players, so I thought it'd be worth actually touching on him. So Preston is 4th most traded out player. See, Curran is actually the 3rd most traded out. I think that's pretty crazy. In such a low upside position, I definitely want to be trying to hold on to Curran. I think he'll be right to be back for round 16. And he's a round 16 number as well. Very quickly, I can actually see in the top trade outs, we've got Sam Hughes and Morgan Smithies. Smithies, I think, is perfectly fine to cash in at 435k. There's not a whole heap of downgrades that you could go to. I've got a few guys here in the 400s. You've got, I don't even mind Burbo. This sounds crazy, but Burbo's actually putting up some scores. Covers around 16, covers around 19. He's dual. It's 473k. I don't actually hate even going back to Burbo. Otherwise, you've got Samuel Lafine, who's got dual, who covers 16 and 19 as well. You've got Kelma Tuolangi. He scored again last week, so he's putting up some scores. Maybe now he's actually turned the corner after all of us wanted him, 2 seasons ago. He's still got a negative 11 break even, so like Smithies to Tuolangi, I don't hate that. But you do miss out on round 16 cover. You only get the round 19 cover. Otherwise, Pia Kura, he doesn't work for you for the buys because he misses 16 and 19. But I think he's got 3 scores in a row of 50, and he's still at a good price at 464k. Oh, 441k. Sorry, I should actually correct that. I don't know where I got 464 from. He's 441k. Biakura. And yeah, scored 54 last week, and I didn't have many attacking stats. Reese has asked about Hamaso as a top center wing. So is R2 Rusty. Look, Hamaso could definitely be up there as well. I know probably should have factored him in. I guess the Dolphins do have a fairly not tough, but like he's averaged 69 earlier this year. But that was from I guess that includes his game of 4, so probably shouldn't include that. But they've had a really easy draw, the Dolphins. If you look at the run home, 15 and 16 is Sharks Melbourne. He will miss round 19 as well. Because Hamaso at the moment is not an option because he plays this week, but then he misses 16. He misses round 18. He misses round 19. And then round 20 is Penrith. 21 is good against the Titans, but then round 22 is against the Roosters. So, but even then, the run, let me just read out Dolphins' draw from round 19 onwards. So, yeah, not even now 19 because he misses it. It's Penrith, Titans, Roosters, Warriors, Bulldogs, Melbourne, Broncos, Knights. That's really not that good of a run for the run home. So, I know Osako covers round 16-19, but I think after round 16-19, he might not himself even be a season keeper. So with Hamaso, I'm probably looking at guys who've got better long-term matchups as well. For the run home, Lomax or Val Holmes, that's a tough one. I have to probably go back. Let me go back to the draws for these guys. Neither are amazing, are they? I'd still probably say Val just because of the team he plays in. I think Pukura does play round 19. Yes, sorry. Yep. I think Val, just because of the team he plays in, more likely to score more points. Marzu to DWZ. Yes, you get that round 16 number. I haven't liked what I've seen from Marzu, and I think he's only going to be good with Ponga. So yeah. What to do with Beau Fermor? I mean, Beau Fermor's back in the back row. He's actually putting up good scores the last few weeks. I don't know about last week. What did he score? 45. To be fair, prior to that was pretty good. And he's got a pretty good run as well. Look, versus the Tigers this week. You just keep him, I guess. I'm going to fire through just to the captain section because I realize I'm going very long on time. But this week, there's actually a fair few good number of good matchups. So, for sure, the best VC, I would say, is Nico Hines. So, he's got Dolphins at home. They've been pretty good against opposition halfbacks, but look, it's Hines. So, I think for sure, if you've got Hines, I'd be straight VCing him. And hopefully you've got a good option for a loop this week with Bulldogs players out. I guess the only thing you have to be wary of is your AEs. I know Joe Chan has been named on the bench again. He scored 20 points. Yeah, 20 points isn't an ideal AE night, isn't an ideal AE score. Someone actually asked earlier, is it too early enough? Excuse me. Yes, I still think it's too early enough. Probably wouldn't be nothing until about round 20, just because we still have all these mini bye weeks and things to navigate. I wouldn't personally be wanting to have enough in my team just yet, but yeah, there's not a lot of downgrades in your second or forward. If you've got duels, maybe someone like I don't even know who there is, Jed Cartwright potentially, maybe. But anyway, back to captaincy. I've got Drinkwater on the list, but I probably wouldn't be looking too much at him. I think Broncos at home is actually a pretty decent matchup for Latrell, so I don't mind him. I would definitely be putting something on Fafita, though, this week. So West Tigers away, just terrible edge defense in the second half last week, making silly errors. Fafita wasn't great last week, but he did nab that try and still ended up on 81. I feel like he's just a very safe VC, or even a straight C, just for like 80-something points. And the West Tigers have been the worst at defending opposition second row forwards from a Supercoach point of view. So for sure, Fafita he's got my VC at the moment. I don't own Nico Hines. If you had Hines and Fafita, I'd probably go Hines VC and then probably Fafita captain. If you don't own Hines anymore, Fafita is probably my preferred vice captain this week. And then in terms of captaincy, I'm probably looking at Roosters versus Parramatta or Manly versus the Dragons. So at the moment, I've actually got my captaincy on Garrick, just because I think playing at home again at Brookvale, he's generally performed very well there for Supercoach. And I think he's just safe for like 70 to 80 points as well. I guess one thing with Fafita, yeah, Steez has actually mentioned here, yeah, Jaden Campbell wasn't good for Fafita last week. So that's probably the one thing I'd say, that if you aren't keen on Fafita, Jaden Campbell was not very good for him. But look, Fafita's Fafita, he still can get his points. But yes, I agree with you. 4 in at 7, I'd rather 4 in at 6, because he just gives Fafita a good, clean early ball. Campbell wasn't really doing that. But look, it's the Tigers. I can see the Titans easily scoring 30 plus points, and Fafita probably would feature in that. So I'm personally looking at VC Fafita, just because of what you're saying there. There is a bit of a risk with Campbell, maybe reducing the ceiling of Fafita a little bit. So Fafita VC, I like the Roosters players. Like we saw the damage that the Bulldogs right side did against Parramatta. So I really like Manu or Dom Young. Parramatta have actually been the worst at defending opposition centres so far this season. So I think for me personally, Manu Garrick is what I'm kind of debating at the moment. Probably leaning Garrick just because he's playing at home and he's goal kicking. I just generally like that. So, but for sure, if you don't own Garrick, I mean, ideally he's a good trade in. Otherwise, I really like Captain Manu or Captain Tedesco. And then if you still own Dylan Edwards, I like him as a shout versus the Knights, because he will be goal kicking, and we know what a good option he's been this season when he's been goal kicking. In terms of other matchups this week to target, probably not a whole heap. I guess the Melbourne Warriors game, I haven't really noted anyone, just because that game feels a little bit tight on paper. Just conscious of time, it's 1 hour 14. So I'm just going to quickly show you guys my team, what I'm thinking for my trades this week. If you guys have enjoyed the stream so far, please do give it a like. That really does help me out. So hopefully you all can see that okay. So let me see. Yes, this is my team as it currently stands. My early thoughts this week were to not do any trades, because I've got a full 17. My front row, at the moment, I'm playing Fainu. What I did was I swapped Curran down to second row, put Fainu up there. Liam Henry has been named on the bench, and full contingent back. I feel like he's going to go back to that role of 30-35. Shout out to Liam Henry, though. He's been an absolute hero. Break even of 0. He's going to keep making me money. He'll be in the 500Ks next week. He won't play next week, so I reckon round 17 I'll keep him. Round 18, I might trade him eventually to like Fanil Blake or something. I don't know. But yeah, early thoughts with my team were to just hold for this week. I'm pretty happy. Like front row is fine, whatever. VC on Fafita. Reserves are all pretty much locked in based on my numbers. So I'm sitting Curran, Karaz, and Sam Hughes. But yeah, otherwise I'm got a full contingent, which I'm happy with. The only thoughts I potentially had were Armstrong to DWZ. But that means I have to drop the reserve off one of Manu, Dom Young, Sam Walker, and Kai Pearce-Paul. It'd probably be Kai Pearce-Paul, who I guess I'd take it off. But, Warriors versus Melbourne doesn't feel like such a matchup I need to target. I like Mulatalo's matchup this week, but then he's got a bye next week. So what I'm thinking is maybe saving trades this week. And then next week, I've got more flexibility on seeing Drinkwater will probably definitely go to someone, I think, next week. Yes, so I might lose a bit of cash on him. But next week, I might just go Drinkwater to... I've got 15k in the bank. I don't have a lot to play with, so I can't even afford Drinkwater to Tedesco in one move. So unless I did Drinkwater to Tedesco and Armstrong down to a cheapie, like maybe Hopewadi, can't really get in Teddy. So what I'm thinking is just sitting on my hands for this week, and I just reassess next week. Maybe next week I go Drinkwater to Teddy and maybe another cheapie emerges, or maybe I do decide to go down to like a Fletcher Sharp or whomever. I don't know. So not totally sure on my trades this week at the moment. Planning on just sitting with Galvin as well, because I don't really have a lot of money to upgrade him to anyone, and I already own Cody Walker. So I think my team will pretty much stay as is. Probably the only decision is play Fainu or Liam Henry, but that's about it. Nothing too major. I can't afford Galvin to Hughes. So that would be nice, but I can't do it. So at the moment, I think, unless I downgraded Armstrong, but yeah. So yeah, at the moment, thinking no trades. We'll do questions for another couple of minutes, and then we'll wrap up the stream there. Bros is saying Galvin for Hughes. Yes, I like that move. Reckon Appy, any chance of origin? I mentioned it before. I don't think he will be, personally. Just especially playing at halfback. I think that ruins his credentials of being the hooker option for New South Wales. Jack Cole or Dane Laurie, who's a better trade in? Didn't actually speak about either of the two, mainly because I feel like we've kind of missed the boat a little bit on them. Probably Jack Cole. I think he's been shown to be preferred to Luai in the halves. He's got a negative 25 break even. Sorry, it's not negative 25. I believe it's actually more than that now, isn't it? What is Cole's break even? He's got a 6 break even. Look, Laurie was only as a short-term option as well for Penrith. So I think, it would probably be Cole for me. Galvin and Drinkwater to Hughes and Teddy leaves 147k in the bank. I can't lie. Like the right-hand side trade-ins, Hughes and Teddy, I prefer to Galvin and Drinkwater, Hamish. Does feel a little bit luxury, but look, I don't mind it if you feel like you need to make other moves next week and you want to do those trades early. But yeah, look, I can't knock it. I don't honestly hate Drinkwater out this week. If I had the money to go straight from Drinkwater to Tedesco, that might have been very tempting. Sione Katoa or Terrell May last reserve. Katoa's actually been good. He put a hell of a move on Cobbo last week, didn't he? Dolphins at home. Terrell May, full forward pack. I'd chance it and maybe take Katoa. Who would I play out of DWZ, Brayley, Fainu, and Burbo? If there's only one of them, probably DWZ, I think. I know it's Melbourne, but look, Melbourne's edge defense wasn't great last week. They conceded 28 points. Is having both of Jerome Hughes and Wishart risky? It's not risky because next 4 weeks you're completely fine. Just round 19 you will be a little bit short in that respect, but by then Wishart could have made plenty of money, and you could move Wishart onto someone else in that point in time. So yeah, I don't hate having the double up of them. Hines to Hughes, Lussick to JMK. I've kind of touched on the Hines to Hughes. I don't love that particular move. I think if you've seen through Hines's missed game last week, I think you just keep him now. Is it an issue trading in Armstrong to DWZ if I have Mulatalo and Iro? No issues. I think DWZ is perfectly fine. The matchup this week could actually be good, playing at home against pretty weak defense in Melbourne, a weak edge defense in Melbourne, what we saw from last week. And then he's got the Titans in round 16, which is great. Last reserve, Talangi or Kai Pearce-Paul. Who are Newcastle playing? Penrith. I mean, Kai Pearce-Paul's like a solid 60. Talangi, I'd probably take Kai Pearce-Paul. I think Talangi I can see probably getting like 35 points, maybe Pearce-Paul like a 50-55. There's a few questions about ranking fullbacks. If you refer back to the fullback section, I definitely get into all of that in detail. But I think I'm going to wrap up the stream there, guys. Thank you all for tuning in. Very much appreciate it. I'm very happy that there was no internet issues, which is awesome. So do give the stream a like if you enjoyed it. I'll put the audio out for this as well this evening as well. But yeah, please give the stream a like. It does help me out a lot. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Probably won't be able to do a Thursday lockout countdown, so I'll try to just get to your questions via social. So follow me on Instagram, Twitter, all of those good stuff, and I'll try to get back to you there. Otherwise, we'll see you all in the next one. Cheers and have